My name is Dr. Daniel Fox. I'm a licensed psychologist in the state of Texas and an expert in the area of personality disorder. And this video for Borderline Personality Disorder Awareness Month, we're going to revisit depression. This is a really popular video that I think a lot of people got a lot of good information from, so I wanted to revisit it, and we'll include some treatment steps, some things that you can do to try to help yourself as well. So let's first start out with the identification of what it is, and then we'll get into the treatment part, okay? So depression, specifically major depressive disorder, is seen in 83% of those with borderline personality disorder. Now, the significant symptoms that overlap between depression and borderline personality disorder, BPD, is sullen expression that mimics depressive symptoms, right? Kind of that down, that sad feeling or expression, okay? Suicide risk and self-harm, affective instability. These are intense episodes of dysphoria, frequent temper outbursts, agitation, irritability that mimics an agitated depression. Now, I have done a video on agitated depression if you'd like to learn more about that. Feelings of emptiness are also significant symptoms that overlap with depression and BPD. Stress-related paranoia that are severe dissociative symptoms that mimic depression with psychotic episodes. So these are those symptoms overlap. And it's important to recognize that. But what about depression with BPD that is not a depressive disorder? Let me describe that for you here. Now, depressive symptoms that occur in those with BPD are due to identifiable stressors. And that's usually a sense of rejection, abandonment, could be end of a relationship, could be you've been fired from a job, whatever it may be, there's an identifiable trigger or stressor. And the depression remits when the stressor is removed or the relationship is restored. So that's when those depressive symptoms sort of go away. Now, depressive symptoms in those with BPD may be present to express or communicate feelings such as anger, frustration, helplessness, disappointment, and all those other feelings that can come along with it. And these tend to be due to difficulty in expressing those emotions, so it's hard. A lot of folks with BPD do have difficulty identifying, expressing their emotions. That emotional intelligence component can often be impaired in those with BPD. And now these depressive states do not respond to medication, and they do require a building in the individual emotional identification and communication skills, and that's where treatment comes in. And let's talk about treatment steps if you believe that you have depression that is comorbid with BPD or that it is a part of BPD. Now, the first thing you want to do, you want to identify the symptoms related to BPD outside of depressive symptomatology. Now, ask yourself, do they last even when the trigger emotional button or the occurrence has ended? So if it ends, right, if that issue that causes that core content, that kicks that core content, that causes that sense of loss, abandonment, rejection, whatever some of that core content is, once that's restored and that core content isn't as intensive, are those depressive symptoms still there? So we have to tease the two apart. Is this depressive symptoms related to BPD, because we know it's in 83%, or is it a depressive disorder? Okay, so we want to find what that is. What are those underlying forces that I just talked about? Find that underlying driving force for the BPD symptoms. This is your core content. For a lot of my clients, common core content can be a sense of abandonment, emptiness. Some cases, it's this sense of feeling invisible, as though you're not present. It can sometimes be a sense of loss of integrity. There's a lot of different core contents. You have to try to figure out what that is. It's so important to build that insight into what that core content is. Okay, so once you've identified that underlying driving force, that core content, okay, then you want to determine how the core content is driving those BPD symptoms. Okay, for example, if the client has abandonment issues, how do you think, feel, and behave when perceived abandonment occurs? So that's your core content, right? Let's say it's abandonment. That sense of abandonment gets triggered. Then that causes what behaviors? What is your surface structure behaviors? Okay? So it's important, and as we go through these steps, take a moment, think about what that is. It may not be something that's easy for you to find. That's why a lot of folks come and talk to me. We engage in treatment. We try to identify what those core content are, what those core contents are, and then we'll also work to identify how that's driving these surface structure behaviors. Okay? Now the next step, now continuing with our abandonment example, is can you recognize the connection between perceived abandonment and BPD and depressive symptom expression? Okay? So does it make sense that when I feel abandoned, these depressive symptoms kick up? So we want to learn, and once you have that, that's a huge step. It's huge. It is a good step. It's a great step, because that empowers you with knowledge about yourself and about your psychological makeup and about gaining understanding into those BPD core content and surface structure behaviors, so you can build that sense of control. But the next step is then you have to learn the adaptive coping strategies, because typically what happens, surface structure behavior kicks in, right? Surface structure behavior kicks in that tends to be maladaptive patterns. So what we want to do is we want to replace those or learn adaptive coping strategies, such as mindfulness, relaxation, healthy distraction when your core content is triggered. You don't have to fall into maladaptive patterns. They may have been there for a long time, so perhaps they're easier to fall into only because they're habit. And I'm going to do a video soon on default behaviors. Okay, sort of these default buttons that we go back to. And that's what happens, is that we are creatures of habit. And that's from all the way that we wake up in the morning, the things that we do, our behavior, our mannerisms, everything. Human beings fall into habit, but we can change those habits. Changing those habits, right, once we know what's driving those habits, empowers you to control what's going on around you and to control yourself. Okay? And that's really important. But let's keep going with the treatment stuff. We got 2 more steps. We're not even done. Okay? So the next, what we want to do is we want to address the fear of letting go of old maladaptive patterns. Okay? This can sometimes be the idea that no one will love me if I'm not depressed or broken. Sometimes we hold that idea in our head, so that reinforces those maladaptive patterns, which reinforces the surface behaviors, which then validates that core content. See how all of that becomes cyclical. Now the last step is, and this is what I do with my clients as well, is learn new ways for you to see yourself and to see the world without that core content, fear, and maladaptive strategies. And it is possible. I've done it with my clients many times, and it's something that you can do as well. I hope you found this video helpful. I'll put the link here for the original video that I did on depression and BPD, and please leave any comments. Perhaps you saw the video, you tried some of those techniques and how it's been working for you, and I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope you got a lot from it, and I've got more content coming out for BPD Awareness Month, and thank you for your time and attention. Have a good day. Thanks. Bye-bye.